At its height, the British Empire was the largest in history, spanning continents and ruling over vast populations. From the Americas to Africa, from the Indian subcontinent to the Pacific, British influence shaped economies, governments, and cultures worldwide. But how did a small island nation, off the coast of Europe, come to dominate so much of the globe? The beginnings of British expansion. The roots of British imperial ambitions trace back to medieval England. Long before Britain became a unified state, the Kingdom of England was already expanding its influence over neighboring territories. By the 13th century, Wales had been conquered, and parts of Ireland were under English control. Scotland, however, remained independent, resisting multiple attempts at invasion. By the late 16th century, England looked beyond its borders, joining the age of exploration. Under Queen Elizabeth I, adventurers such as Sir Francis Drake and Sir Walter Raleigh set sail across the Atlantic in search of wealth and new territories. In 1585, England established its first North American colony at Roanoke, but it mysteriously vanished, leaving little trace of its settlers. Despite this failure, the desire for overseas expansion remained strong. The first English colonies. At the start of the 17th century, England's colonial ambitions became more structured. King James I, who united England and Scotland under one monarch in 1603, granted charters to companies that sought to establish permanent settlements. One of the most significant was the Virginia Company, which in 1607 founded Jamestown, the first successful English colony in North America. Meanwhile, in the Caribbean, the English established sugar plantations that would soon become the backbone of their economy. The transatlantic slave trade played a major role in these colonies, with enslaved Africans forcibly brought to work on plantations in places like Barbados and Jamaica. In 1660, the Royal African Company was created to control and profit from the slave trade, becoming one of the most powerful entities in the empire. Britain's economy thrived on this brutal system, as goods like sugar, tobacco, and cotton flowed back to Europe. Competition and conflict with other powers. During the 17th and early 18th centuries, Britain faced fierce competition from other European powers, particularly Spain, France, and the Netherlands. Wars between these nations often had consequences for their colonies. In North America, the English seized New Amsterdam from the Dutch in 1664, renaming it New York. In the early 18th century, Britain also clashed with France over dominance in North America and India. The Seven Years' War, 1756 to 1763, saw Britain emerge victorious, taking control of French Canada and greatly expanding its presence in India. The Treaty of Paris in 1763 confirmed Britain's dominance, marking a high point in its imperial ambitions. The loss of the American colonies. However, the empire's expansion was not without its setbacks. In the 1760s and 1770s, tensions grew between Britain and its American colonies over taxation and representation. Many colonists felt they were being unfairly taxed by a government in which they had no voice. In 1775, the American Revolution erupted, and by 1783, Britain was forced to recognize the independence of the United States. The loss of the 13 colonies was a major blow, leading Britain to focus its efforts on Asia, Africa, and the Pacific. Expansion in India and the Pacific. While Britain lost America, it rapidly expanded its influence in India. The British East India Company, a private trading company, gradually took control over vast territories, defeating local rulers and their European allies. The Battle of Plassey in 1757 marked the beginning of British dominance in India. By the early 19th century, India had become the jewel in the crown of the British Empire. British rule brought infrastructure, railways, and administration, but it also led to exploitation and economic dependency. Elsewhere, British explorers like Captain James Cook charted new territories in the Pacific. In the 1770s, he claimed Australia and New Zealand for Britain. Australia soon became a penal colony, where Britain sent convicts to ease overcrowding in its prisons. The Napoleonic Wars and further expansion. As the 19th century began, Britain faced a new challenge: the rise of Napoleon Bonaparte in France. The Napoleonic Wars, 1803 to 1815, were fought across Europe and beyond, with Britain using its naval power to counter French expansion. The British Navy, after its victory at Trafalgar in 1805, secured control of the seas, allowing the empire to grow further. After Napoleon's defeat in 1815, Britain gained new colonies, including Mauritius, Trinidad, and the Cape Colony in South Africa. The Royal Navy also took on a new role, stamping out the slave trade after Britain abolished slavery in 1833. The Age of Imperialism. The 19th century is often called Britain's imperial century. By 1900, the empire controlled vast portions of Africa, India, the Caribbean, and the Pacific. British forces fought wars in China, forcing the Qing dynasty to open its markets. Hong Kong was ceded to Britain in 1842, after the First Opium War. Africa also became a focus of expansion. The scramble for Africa in the late 19th century saw Britain take control of large territories, including Egypt, Sudan, Kenya, and South Africa. Britain's interest in Egypt was largely due to the Suez Canal, a crucial route for trade with India. The decline of the empire. Despite its immense power, Britain's empire faced growing resistance. Nationalist movements emerged in India, Africa, and Ireland, demanding self-rule. The Boer War, 1899 to 1902, in South Africa, revealed the difficulties of maintaining control over distant colonies. The two world wars of the 20th century accelerated the empire's decline. During World War I, 1914 to 1918, Britain relied heavily on its colonies for soldiers and resources. By the end of World War II, 1939 to 1945, Britain was financially exhausted, and calls for independence grew louder. India, the most prized British colony, gained independence in 1947, followed by many African and Caribbean nations in the 1950s and 1960s. The process of decolonization continued for decades, culminating in the 1997 handover of Hong Kong to China. The legacy of the British Empire. Today, the British Empire no longer exists, but its legacy remains. English is the most widely spoken language in the world, and many former colonies still have legal and political systems influenced by Britain. The Commonwealth of Nations, a voluntary association of former British territories, continues to connect many of these countries. The empire's impact is complex. While it brought economic development and global trade, it also caused deep social and political scars. The effects of British rule can still be seen in conflicts, borders, and economies worldwide. Though the empire itself is gone, its history continues to shape the modern world. If you found this video informative, please give it a thumbs up, share it with friends, and don't forget to subscribe for more content like this.